Here we go with another toxic best friend story time. So a little background information. So a couple of years ago, I became best friends with this one girl who we're going to call Sammy. Every year her family would go on a camping trip, and every year I couldn't go. Something would always come up even if it was last minute. Well, this year finally nothing was standing in the way so I could go on this freaking camping trip, and we had literally been planning this for like 6 months. So this plan was we would go up there in the afternoon after I was done with work and after she was done with school. Well, then she calls me and she asks me if I can call off work and go up a day early with her. And I told her, no, I can't do that. I already took off a bunch of time because I was sick and for my sister's wedding. So I need the money. So after I tell her I can't go up on Thursday, I would rather go on Friday like we said, she responds with, well, we're going on Thursday and either you can take the day off and join or not. And then I told her, I'm not driving when the whole plan was for you to drive. Like I said, she tried to talk me into taking off work so that way we could go up on Thursday, but I told her no, I would rather stick with the plan and go up Friday. And then she says, well, you can do that, but we're all going up on Thursday, so you're gonna have to find your own ride. And then I told her, I'm not driving up there. I don't know this place. So at that point, I was like, fuck it. If they leave without me, they live without me. I do not care at this point. And I pretty much said that. If you want to go without me, then go without me. And she called me and she was like, you're being extremely rude. A little background information on Sammy. She was a super selfish, self-centered person. And she has like only child syndrome. Every time we hung out, we had to do what she wanted to do. I was super annoyed about this because I had already planned for this vacation. Meaning I took the time off work. I rearranged my whole schedule. And now I don't really know if I want to be friends with her. What do you guys think?
Am I wrong for not paying for my daughter's prom outfit? I, 36 female, have 4 beautiful kids. 2 daughters, 17 and 2, and 2 sons, 20 and 14. Growing up, I didn't have any fun birthday parties, and I didn't get to go to prom or any of that since I was pregnant at a young age. I was very happy to see my 20-year-old go to prom and give my kids parties. My 17-year-old has prom this year. Last year, because of my baby girl, I couldn't give her a sweet 16. She didn't want one, but I did push it until she started doing more planning, and we sadly had to cancel before it could happen since we just couldn't afford it. She said she was fine with it, and that was all. Here's our issue. Her prom is at the end of the month. Also, this month is my baby's birthday. Her cake costs around $200. She has 3 outfits getting handmade, personal planner and decorations, etc. So with this going on, we can't pay for my daughter's prom dress and all that. My son had a job, so he paid for his own. My daughter has yet to get a job because her therapist claims she can't handle one due to her mental conditions. Yesterday she came to me and said since it was spring break, we should go start looking for prom dresses since we've been putting it off. I told her that I thought she knew we wouldn't be able to get her prom stuff, and she'd have to do that herself by getting a job. She asked me how I expected her to get a job and the money for her stuff, and told her that that was her problem and she was almost a graduate and needed to figure that out herself. Out of nowhere, she burst into tears and started telling me I promised her I'd do this for her. I had, but that was a year ago. And threw the sweet 16 thing in my face and told me she had cried over it for months. Which I don't think is my fault since she didn't even want it in the first place. She's refusing to talk to me and said she won't go to her sister's party, just do something with her privately with her brothers involved because it hurts too much. And that she will ask her father to help her with prom. Which hurt me since she's been open about how she likes her dad more than me. It feels like she's only doing it to rub it in my face. I thought my daughter would understand, but she's taking it very personal. But I do understand how I could be the asshole for saying I would do it and not clarifying later on that I wouldn't. Opinions from parents, teenage girls, am I the asshole here?
My husband, 33, has a friend, Carl, 33, who he considers to be one of his closest friends. My husband sometimes calls Carl his nicotine because of how much he misses him and wants to spend time with him. They do everything together. They're even coworkers working the same job. Unfortunately, Carl's wife passed away from cancer 3 months ago, which caused him to distance himself. My husband felt devastated for him. He recently started spending more time with him and brought him meals. We planned a 3-day vacation to another state. I made a hotel reservation for 2. Unbeknownst to me, my husband had invited Carl to come with us. This made me upset because it spoiled the entire vacation. Not trying to be dramatic, I only found out when he went to pick him up. I sucked it up after my husband explained that Carl is a recent widower who's been wallowing in grief for so long and needed this vacation. The problem is money is tight, and since Carl hasn't worked ever since his wife passed, he couldn't pay for his own room and we didn't have a budget for it. My husband said that we should just share one room. I again sucked it up since he said that we'd be out all day on the beach anyway. First night, I was in bed when my husband and Carl got back. I got woken up by my husband telling me to get out of bed and sleep on the mattress he put on the floor for me, and that he and Carl would take the bed. I asked if he was serious and he asked what else is he supposed to do. He said that Carl was a guest and we can't let him sleep on the floor, and at the same time, I can't share a bed with Carl while he, my husband, sleeps on the floor. I told him I didn't sign up for this, but he told me to suck it up and try to put the Carl as a widower card. I told Carl to get out and then got up and got dressed to go home. My husband started yelling at me, calling me irrational, but I wasn't having it. I left the hotel and traveled back home. Carl didn't say anything when he saw me leave, except that I was making this non-issue an issue. When they got back, my husband refused to even talk about it, but still said that I ruined this for Carl and us and acted aberrantly and disgustingly. I admit Carl is struggling and I might have ruined this for him, but I didn't even know he was coming. Am I the asshole for going home after I got told to sleep on the floor?
Storytime on how I got fired from Ulta. I know y'all are like, girl, you just had the interview. What happened? And then I mentioned it was before my first day. So as most of you know, about a month ago, I went in for the interview. And the interview went well. Like, we hit it off and everything. She was showing me the break room, the back room, where they keep their food, their lockers. I'm like, y'all show that to all y'all interview candidates? So I'm thinking like, okay, I'm in there. A couple days later, I did receive a call saying that I received the job, but the hiring manager was out of town, so I had to wait till she got back. So fast forward to like last week, I'm in the mall, doing mall things, shopping. Shopping make you hungry. So at the end of my mall trip, I decided to go get me something from the food court. So I finished ordering and I reached down for my lanyard so I could pay for my food, and it's not there. Now connected to my lanyard is it's the thing that goes around your neck and it has a wallet connected to it, and my keys were on it too. My ID, my cards, my entire life was on that lanyard. So I literally go throughout the entire mall searching frantically for my lanyard. I go through every store I was in. I went to security. I tried to check the cameras. I tried to do everything to find that lanyard. On top of that, I was just mad at myself because it was I know things happen, but at your big age, you losing your keys in the mall of all places. In the midst of me frantically looking for my keys, my phone rings, and lo and behold, guess who it is? It's Ulta. I mean, their timing couldn't have been any more terrible. And they're basically saying hey, they wanted me to come in and put my information into the system. I had to bring 2 forms of ID. My ID was probably sitting in somebody's pocket by now. So I was explaining the situations to them, basically saying I didn't have 2 forms of ID and I also didn't have my car keys in order to get there to put my name in the system. It's oh, you can just bring your passport and I'm like, you're not understanding. How am I going to get there? On top of my passport being expired and I don't even know where it's at. So all I was asking for was a day, maybe 2, just to replace the items that I misplaced. We ended the phone call with some okay. So I'm thinking it's okay. Yeah. I get an email not even 5 minutes after we hung up the phone saying, we've decided to go with other candidates. What? I mean, I called, sent emails after that because I'm like, are you kidding me right now? When I tell you they ignored me, I was like, okay. I was very disappointed because it was just a terrible chain of events. But anywho, I like to think that means God's plans for me are far greater than Ulta Beauty, and that is okay with me.
I'm Eddie. I was surprised to wake up with the sun so bright out. I reached out for my phone to check the time. It was past noon. My mom was supposed to wake me up that day. The plan was to have breakfast at the Museum of Natural History cafeteria and then visit the Skeletons of Extinct Animals exhibit. When my mom heard of the show, she got tickets for us without even asking me. That's because she knows how much I'm into prehistoric animals. I jumped up from the bed in a bad mood. Mom, why didn't you wake me? I yelled, shuffling to the kitchen. But my mom wasn't there. I ran to the living room. There was no one there either, so I thought she had to be in the backyard. Mom! I called out to her. Well, she wasn't there either. I went back to my room. I picked up the phone and called her. The phone started ringing somewhere inside the house. I listened to the ringing to figure out where it was coming from. It was my parents' bedroom. No way! Is Mom sleeping in? I said, barging into their bedroom. No one was in there. My mom's phone was on the bed, and it was weird that my dad's phone was also there. So where would Mom and Dad have gone, leaving their phones behind? Did something happen to them? I was getting anxious waiting for them to come back. At the same time, I was thinking about what I should do. My mom's brother, Uncle Martin, works at the bank next door. He stops by our house every day. It was the weekend, so the bank was closed that day. I still wanted to call my uncle to ask him if he knew what was happening. Uncle Martin, my parents are both gone, but their phones are here. Do you know where they could have gone? My uncle said, I don't know. I'm sure it's nothing to worry about. They'll be home soon. I went to bed. I began watching stuff on YouTube to get my mind off the issue. Speaking with my uncle had only made me more anxious. After a while, I began to nod off. I woke up with a jolt to a voice in the night. I listened carefully. The voice sounded like it was coming from the next room. Mom? I yelled as I was getting up. It was dark inside the house, and no one else was there. I checked the time. It was almost 10. Apparently, I had slept all day. I realized that I hadn't eaten anything either. On my way to the kitchen, I thought I heard that voice again, the one that woke me. It sounded like screaming. It sounded like my mom's voice. It was coming from inside the wall. I put my ear against the wall when I heard the voice calling, "Eddie! Eddie!" I was scared. For a while, I stood staring at the wall in disbelief. I didn't have a choice. I had to listen to what it was saying, even though I was terrified. When I placed my ear against the wall, I heard the same voice. It was muffled, and I could barely understand what it was saying. All I could make out was my mom's voice screaming my name. What was my mom doing inside the wall? This doesn't make sense. Mom can't be inside the wall, I said, trying to stay calm. Then I got an idea. The basement. Mom's in the basement! I ran to the basement door. The door to the basement is always locked because it's infested with mice. When I touched the knob, the door creaked open. It had been a long time since we'd been down there. Inside, there was a dim light. "Mom!" I called out to her from the top of the stairs. At that moment, I clearly heard my mom say, "Eddie! Eddie, honey, we're in here!" I called out to her again as I nervously went down the stairs. "Thank God, Eddie," Mom said. "We're here. Come over here, honey." I could hear her clearly, but she still sounded muffled. As I came closer to the light, I saw dirt on the floor. "Mom, is Dad there too?" I asked. She replied, "Yes, he's here, honey, but he doesn't feel well. We need your help." There were quite a few buckets under the light, and they were all filled with dirt. I looked up at the wall. It looked like a tunnel, but the entrance was caved in. "Mom, what's going on? Why are you in there?" I asked. "Honey, it's a tunnel. Your dad started feeling faint as he was digging last night. I came in to help him, but the ground above us collapsed, and we got trapped," Mom replied. "Mom, why was Dad digging a tunnel?" I said in shock. She said, "Eddie, I'll tell you everything, but you have to call your uncle and tell him to come over. We need to get your dad out of here right now." I ran upstairs, called my uncle, and told him everything. He arrived half an hour later, holding a shovel and a spade. My uncle and I started working. He carefully began removing dirt from the front of the tunnel. I started filling the buckets with soil and running up the stairs to dispose of the earth in our backyard. We dug out the entrance of the tunnel for hours. Finally, I could see my parents. My dad was lying on the ground. My uncle jumped in to help him up. He took him by the arm and carried him out of the tunnel. My mom was crying. "I've been screaming for hours so that you could hear me. You found us just when I thought I couldn't scream any longer. You saved us, honey," my mom said, hugging me. I looked around. "Mom, why was Dad digging this tunnel in the first place?" I asked. "I'll tell you everything, but first I need to attend to your father. Let's get out of here," she said, running up the stairs. I was left alone inside the tunnel, so I decided to look around. I wondered how long my dad had been digging. I walked deep inside. My dad had built a wooden structure to prevent the tunnel from collapsing. He even installed a power line and lit up the place with light bulbs. It was an engineering marvel. I was impressed. There was something sparkly on the ground that caught my attention. I looked down to investigate. Mom had dropped one of her earrings. There was a long tooth right next to the earring. I held it in my hand. It looked like a fang, but it was gigantic. Just then, I heard my uncle's voice. He was standing at the edge of the tunnel and calling out to me. "The tunnel's not safe. Please, get out of there," he said. I pocketed the fang. When I went upstairs, I saw my dad lying in bed. "How are you doing?" I asked him.
"I was having difficulty breathing down there, but I'm okay now,"
he replied. Mom said, "I'm sure you have lots of questions. What I'm about to tell you may be upsetting. The doctors diagnosed me with a muscular disease. If I don't get treatment, I'll be bedridden. We found that it's treatable, but we can't afford the medicine. Your uncle realized that the vault of the bank he works for is on the same level as our basement. Even though it's a crazy idea, he told us we could reach the vault by digging a tunnel from our basement. Your dad has been digging this tunnel for 4 months. We know this isn't right. Your dad is making this sacrifice for me, and we only plan on taking the $2 million we need." "Why didn't you tell me you were sick? We could have figured something out," I said, hugging my mom. I couldn't sleep that night. What if they get caught? I'd lose them both. The thought upset me deeply. That night, I remembered the fang I found in the tunnel. I got up from the bed and pulled the tooth from the pants I had worn earlier. I picked it up to give it a closer look. A tooth this big could only belong to a wild animal, but it made no sense for a wild animal of that size to have died in the middle of the city. I searched for wild animal teeth on Google. This fang was bigger than any of the ones I found online. I decided to pay the tunnel another visit. Maybe I could find other body parts belonging to the animal. I scanned the walls and the floor with a flashlight. I didn't find anything. Just as I was leaving, I saw another fang on the ground. I tried pulling on it hard, but it wouldn't budge. I found a piece of wood and used it to unearth the rest of the tooth. Suddenly, it dawned on me. The tooth was still connected to a jawbone. After working on it for some time, I uncovered an entire jawbone attached to a skull. It was gigantic and must have belonged to a prehistoric animal. I carried the skull into my room and started searching online. What I discovered literally sent shivers up my spine. What I had found in our basement was a T-Rex. There was a T-Rex skull in my room. I didn't sleep that night. When my parents woke up, I told them about the skull. At first, they didn't believe me. They said it must belong to some other animal. They were only convinced after I showed them some different T-Rex skull samples. When I said, "Mom, we can sell this online and pay for your treatment," they stared at me.
Could this skull be worth that kind of money?
Dad asked. "Of course! We found America's first T-Rex fossil," I replied in excitement. The next day, we went to the Museum of Natural History. The museum director said,
This is a huge discovery. If I'm being honest, private collectors would pay at least $15 million for such a specimen. Unfortunately, we have a limited budget. We can only offer you $3 million.
That amount was more than enough to cover my mom's treatment, so we accepted their offer. I didn't want this incredible T-Rex fossil to gather dust in some private collector's home. It had to be publicly displayed for visitors coming from all over the world. My mom got her treatment with the money we made from the fossil. My parents thank me all the time, but my dad deserves the real credit. Thanks to him, I got to touch a real T-Rex skull. We still have the tunnel. Sometimes I lightly scratch the dirt to see if I can find the remains of another dinosaur. I've yet to find anything, but I'm hopeful. I believe that our T-Rex wasn't alone.